There are many people who read the Bible and seeing it because it's such an ancient book, it has very little relevance to our own day. But when you go back and you read the Bible and pay attention to the details of the text of Scripture and understand something about who God is and who man is, and the nature of government in the Bible as not simply being political, you come to some realization that the Bible is a very modern book because it describes the reality of life and the individual and the family, the church and business and in the state in ways that we're seeing worked out in our own day. Just because the men wear suits and ties and no longer wear garb of Middle Eastern depiction does not mean that they don't act in the same way. And one of the stories of the Bible I think is pertinent for us to understand as we look at politics at the end of 2009 and going into 2010 is to see that very little has changed in more than 2,800 years. And a good place, again, to look at this is to take a peek at the book of Judges. The book of Judges is kind of a microcosm of what happens when, as the theme of the book of Judges states, every man did what was right in his own eyes. And then when you begin to see that people go after other gods, there's no neutrality. Everybody is religious in some regard. Generally, any religion against the true God is simply humanistic religion. Even atheism is a humanistic religion. And a place to start with that is the end of Gideon's reign and even his life and what happens socially and politically. And you'll see a number of parallels with what's going on in our own nation today. The end of Judges chapter 8, so Midian was subdued before the sons of Israel, and they did not lift up their heads anymore, and the land was undisturbed for 40 years in the days of Gideon. That's verse 28 of Judges chapter 8. Then Jerubbaal, now Jerubbaal is a name given to Gideon, and you can see the back and forth swing between Gideon, the name Gideon and Jerubbaal. Jerubbaal means a Baal fighter, someone who contends against Baal. And you'll see this back and forth when Gideon is compromising his faith, he's usually designated as Gideon, but when he is fighting for the true faith against the false religion of Baalism, he is described as Jerubbaal. Now Gideon had 70 sons who were his direct descendants, for he had many wives. Notice verse 30, Gideon, the name Gideon is used. He had 70 sons who were his direct descendants, for he had many wives. Here you see the depiction of Gideon as a humanist. He's a polygamist. And not only does he have many wives, but he has concubines. In fact, this gets him in a great deal of trouble and gets the nation in trouble as well. Verse 31, and his concubine who was in Shechem also bore him a son, and he named him Abimelech. A concubine is someone who probably still lived in her father's house, but was still married, if you will, to Gideon. And she had a son called Abimelech. And verse 32, and Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a ripe old age and was buried in the tomb of his father Joash in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Then it came about, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the sons of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals and made Baal-Berith their god. Baal-Berith is a mix of the covenant Berith and Baalism, which is more like a civil religion. They take the basic trappings of the faith of Israel and wrap it around the essential power religion of Baalism, and which is what we have in the United States today. We have a civil religion. People still acknowledge the existence of God for the most part, but still like the idea of political power, give more and more power to the state, which is essentially what Baalism was. Then the sons of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side, nor did they show kindness to the household of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in accord with all the good that he had done to Israel. So Abimelech comes up here as, in fact, his name means the Ab, or Av, like an Abraham means father, and Melech is king. And so my father is king. So here we begin to see this dynastic aspect of Gideon's problem in getting away from the claim that he would be a king over the people, but at the same time having those aspirations, which is very much what the conservative movement here in the United States is like. While we denounce the political machinations of liberals in health care reform and so forth, the conservatives still like their programs. They still like public education. They still like Medicare. They still like the the trappings of government. They still like the trappings of power. The kind of the neoconservative movement today likes the idea of power, but at the same time they use the language of religiosity. They call God in as a kind of a moniker for approval on their actions. And you're going to see this more and more through Judges chapter 9. It says, and Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem to his mother's relatives, who spoke to them and to the whole clan of the household of his mother's father, saying, speak now in the hearing of all the leaders of Shechem, which is better for you, that 70 men, all the sons of Jerubbaal, rule over you, or that one man rule over you. Also remember that I am your bone and your flesh. That is, I'm a relative of yours. And so what he's saying, he says, look, what's better here? Do you really want to put hands in the power of 70 men? And by the way, the other sons of Gideon don't really seem to have any aspirations for political power. But Abimelech is using this. He says, look, put your faith and put your political faith in me as an individual. I'll rule over you. Give me the power to rule over you. You don't want a decentralized political system, and that's the idea of 70 rulers. And by the way, there could be some favoritism here. You'll be able to have access to my inner circle because I'm one of your relatives. And this is modern day politics. It's modern day politics. It's the idea of give more and more power to a centralized system. And then grant access. You put people in your cabinet and you have your czars, granting access to people out there to get favor to the President of the United States. The same thing happens in Congress, and it happens on both political parties. This whole health care bill dealt with that. It was, if you vote for this, I'm going to give money to your district. You'll be a friend of mine. We're like brothers in all of this. Vote for this, and I'll take care of you. The way our system was originally developed was a decentralized system. Very, very little power to the central government, more power to the states, but we had a kind of a 70 division of states. We had 13 individual colonies that became states. They had their own constitutions and governors and so forth. It was a decentralized system. That's what made it work. It was actually the diversity in the breakup of power that made America work so well. Now we're seeing the consolidation of power in the hands of certainly not just one man, but certainly in the hands of a central ideology. An ideology says that if you give more power to the state, if you give more money to the state, you will have a better society. This is exactly what Abimelech promised the people of Israel in his day. Grant power to me, give me money, and to take this on, and we'll see it happen. Now, to show you that how religious this is, and we're coming to a close here, is that what Abimelech did was he killed nearly all of Gideon's sons, all 70 of them, on one stone. Now, this was not so much murder, but it was a religious sacrifice. The civil religion, the power religion, is in fact religion, and to eliminate all competition against this centralized power.